Hello, back to another fashion show on my channel. I'm Jacob from Jacob Books Corner. Today we're at a book corner talking about the 40 books I read in May. The crazy number, I don't know. Don't ask me about it, okay? I do have 20 something of those books sitting right here because 20 something of those books will just talk about the series very briefly and like the essence of the series, not so much the series itself. It was for a video and that's the only reason why I read all of them, and the video just did not work. It did not work at all. And sometimes that happens. And I find that the videos that have the most content for them typically don't work out. It's fine. We did bring back the bag method if you're familiar. Instead of the tin method. This is just because I found the tin method to be a little more not helpful for me as a creative. Also, if you're looking for like 3s to 5s, like what's the majority here, the majority of these are 3s. Okay, I would say 90% of what I read this month was a 3. I read very little 2s, very little no 1s. I don't have a single 1 in here, which is beautiful. Love that for us. I do have a bunch of did not rates, which we'll talk about. It's that series I just mentioned. And I have a few 5s and a few 4s scattered throughout that I would highly recommend. In the 3s, we're just going to tell you a little bit about them and be like, if this sounds like it's a vibe for you, then it's a vibe for you. If it's not, it's not. The way this works is I pull out a small book, we'll talk about small book, then we'll move on to next small book. If it's a part of a series, I will try to find both books in series, but I can't promise that. All right. Our first title will be a book I didn't really care for. Okay, and that's Meat Eaters. The cover is outstanding. This was an e-arc that I got. I read it towards the middle of the month, and I gave it a 3.25. If I'm not mistaken, this is a different take on vampires and supernatural and stuff. This girl ends up dying and coming back to life, and she learns that the only way to really survive is to eat meat, and she finds a community about them. And it's kind of like vampires, it's kind of like zombies, a little mixture of both. I didn't really care for it. It was an e-arc. I don't know when it's releasing, but it is a 3.25. Easy peasy. Okay, we're just running through these, aren't we? This is also another 3-star read, if I'm not mistaken. It was a 3.5, and that is Pop Kill. Pop Kill is your typical one-man army type of story, just in graphic novel format, in which I actually think it does not work in graphic novel format. I find action to be really hard to translate sometimes, and in particular with this series, I just don't, or in this particular book, I don't think it does. I don't really remember the essence of it, but it's about this hitman, and I'm pretty sure his wife gets kidnapped or something along those lines. It's something in that regard. If that sounds interesting to you, I would recommend it though. I do think it does a good job for what it's trying to do. It just wasn't my favorite. I'm gonna give it a 3.5. Okay, there's so many of these. I gotta move quicker. Okay, this is a part of a set. Okay, this is what I like to call I saw Thunderbolts and I wanted to read Thunderbolts comics. Okay, and Thunderbolts comics are not that good, so I went Black Widow instead, and I read a Singularity of Thunderbolt, which we'll talk about briefly here. This was a 3. This is a journalistic 3. This is the closest thing you're gonna get to, like, if you want to read the team for an actual standalone. This is about where you're gonna go. The story itself wasn't that good for me. I couldn't really tell you anything about it either, so that's a bad sign, so I wouldn't recommend. A lot of people do think that is the best Thunderbolts out there, though, so take that as you will. I read a 3-part series, which we'll talk about next, and then I started another Black Widow series, which I also enjoyed. The problem with this is, once again, I read them so quickly that sometimes my brain really does just forget. So this is a 3-book set, okay, and it follows Natasha for 1, then it brings Yelena, and then it follows Yelena for the 3rd. Equally about, I think I landed on a 3.5 for it, for the accumulations of the 3-issue arcs that each of them are. Yelena's was my personal favorite, called Pale White Spider or something along those lines. I think personally for me, it was the one that makes me the most happy and excited to move forward. I feel like all 3 of these are very excellent. It's also the introduction of the character Yelena, so I feel like you could take something away from it. However, every time I read something that is very much Black Widow related, I do get disappointed because I just feel like somebody could do better. And there is like some good ones out there, don't get me wrong. We're actually going to talk about some of those right now. Both these books, this is book 1 and book 2, of a Black Widow series that you could be reading, especially if comic psychology. They're both excellent. They're both 4 stars. I will continue on with the 3rd this month. I have plans to continue on, and I've enjoyed them both. Some of them have collections. This one has like a little arc with Punisher in it and stuff, and it's very interconnected. Overall, enjoyed, would recommend. Let's go ahead and pick the next book. This is Dracula's Brunch Club. I think the cover for this is immaculate, which is a common thing that you're going to see. And the book did not hold up to it. Also, the art style was ridiculously horrible, in my opinion. This screamed like I was written for like little kids, but with an adult premise. And it didn't work for me. This is about Dracula. He invites everybody over for brunch, and they realize that the jam that he normally has is not nowhere near, and someone else is trying to take over brunch. And it's pretty simple. And it's probably a cute story. Well, it's an okay story. I gave it a 3. But it was not my favorite of the month. Let's move forward. Next one. I'm not going to pull up the other one, which is fine. I can't really talk about them anyways. The series will get reviewed and posted this month, so I can move on from it for my life. But I started Red Queen a while ago, and I finally finished it this month. I read Warstorm, and then also kind of read Broken Thrones. I'll talk about it in that video. When it pops up, I'll just throw it out of the bag. That's Warstorm. Like I said, I can't tell you the rating. I can tell you this much. Those are the books that put me in a reading slump, to the point where I was like, I'm not going to be able to read anything this month. Also, why do they stay with me like a month later, but I couldn't think about the fuck what is about during the filming process? Clowns in the Cornfield, I just posted a video on this where I reread this book for the movie adaptation, and the book itself was once again a beautiful 5-star read. I did a whole spoiler review on this book for the first time on my channel. I've always talked about it in non-spoilery fashion, so that was really fun. And I got to talk about the adaptation as well, which also super fun. Main lead in that is just has the 13th Ginny Georges come out. That's the day I'm filming this. I'm pretty sure you're seeing it like tomorrow, next day anyways. Let's go in Cornfield. This follows dated. Queen Maybrook she has a move to Kettle Springs. She just happens to move to Kettle Springs on the wrong weekend, really. And there's a huge massacre that takes place while she is there for the 4 days. Moving on. Next book. We read the first book for the Wayward Werewolf series. This is a book that I honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, thought was AI generated. I don't actually think it is anymore. This is by Heather G. Harris and Julian Dollface. This is the first book in like a 14-book series. It follows our main detective as she's traveling from London to America. She's a vampire and she ends up joining the police squad. She ran away from London because of how they handle vampires there. You basically get sold off, and she was turned under against her own will. She was drugged and then turned. And so yeah, she also throughout the book learns that maybe she's not as ordinary. One of the big takeaways I took from this, because this is for a video, tell you the rating. No, I won't tell you the rating. There's a reason why. You'll find out eventually. But this is for a video that I did, and I found it really interesting that the world itself was like really, really well built, really unique. There's a lot of supernatural creatures running around, and I feel like a lot of people could take a lot of good things from this, so I would probably recommend. That was not my takeaway when I saw the cover and also the recommendation, but hey, we're here for it. Alright, the next one is Spectator. This is Brian K. Vaughan's newest, I think it's already out. I think it came out in May, if I'm not mistaken. Spectators itself follows a girl. She dies in a very horrific way. I won't say it here because I do think it could be quite, triggering for some. This book itself is extremely NC-17. It's the best way I know how to describe it. There should be a big parental advisory on it. It's full of nothing but blood and guts and sex and violence in very graphic ways. Very typical Brian K. Vaughan in my opinion, and I think it works also beautifully. This main character is very void of a lot of things, but also very curious of a lot. I think it just works on a lot of different levels, so I would highly recommend. I gave it a personal 5-star. One of my favorite comic books I read all year. However, I don't think that's going to be the case for a lot of people, so just going that, I'm pretty sure the Goodreads average is like a 3.5 or a 3.3 or something, which is really low. So, next one. Let's go Flirty Dancing. Flirty Dancing is obviously a interpretation of Dirty Dancing. Now, to be fair, maybe I should have upped my knowledge on the movie that it's based on to really enjoy the characters. However, having finished it, this is one of the lowest rated books I read this month. It was a 2.25. And my big takeaway from it was how unrealistic the actions of the characters are. Essentially, we have this character, he's going on the verge of 30, and he decides really late in life to go chase his dreams of being a Broadway star. They're not working out for him for XYZ reasons, and he ends up getting a gig being a part of it's somewhat of a burlesque type show where he's dancing every night, but to different songs and having a bunch of routines, and it's every night essentially is what goes on during the summer, Monday through Friday, and it's all around the world. So every night is a different culture, it's a different type of version of that, dancing or whatever. And while he's there, he ends up meeting his childhood crush, who was really big in the Broadway scene when he was younger and had a big falling out and is now here. But he's also in a situationship with his roommate, who was weird from the beginning. If a roommate does what this roommate did to him really, really early on, which really once underscores the childish nature of this story and why I think it would have worked better. And I feel like I would have enjoyed it better if these characters were fresh out of high school or are in between a year of college, like the freshman year of college, okay? Very early on, and this is like something that they're doing during the summer. I guess they have to be 21. There's a lot of, no, you don't. Give me books I read for teen drinking. You don't need to be 21. I take that back. But I mean, I guess you probably have to be somewhere in your 20s, maybe early 20s. I think I would have still maybe believed it a bit better, enjoyed it a bit better. This was not something I enjoyed reading, and I would have a hard time recommending it. But a lot of people kind of like it. I think the majority of people are giving it between a 3 and a 4. Take that as you will. Definitely was not my cup of tea. Can get one more in before we get cut off again. No One's Supposed to Die at This Wedding by Catherine Mack. This is the second book in this series. I read the first one, loved it, gave it 5 stars. Really excited for the sequel. I did not live up to the hype in my opinion. I did give it a 4.5. I feel like it was a little too short and not on the nose either. The first book, part of the reason why it worked so well for me was how on the nose it was. It was ridiculously on the nose. You know, the author who is talking to you while she's writing these books, while the experience is going on, she basically says in the first book, like, this is a major clue. Oh, we're about to get to the plot twist, or something along those lines. And a lot of that humor was devoid in this novel, in my opinion. And it did take away from my enjoyment. However, I would definitely read it again, and I would probably have more fun the second time. Also, the people who did it, I could have guessed. I mean, I did guess. It wasn't a coulda, I would have. We knew there was going to be many. So we have Skin Police. I don't remember what this is about. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have a single clue in the world. I really hate to say it. This was an e-arc, so like I really wish I could have told you a bit more about it. I remember not loving it, and I remember the concept being cooler than the execution. Whatever that was, I don't know. But that's Skin Police. I don't remember what I gave it either. I'm going to be honest with you. A 3. That's probably why. It just didn't stay in my head. I thought it was basic enough to like be enjoyable, but nothing more. Moving onwards. Alright, the one I just pulled from this bag was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This is a 5-star prediction, so I cannot tell you about it, but I can tell you that video is coming to you shortly. It will be during this month. And then the last one will be posted in July. I'm going to keep June's for July. But this one, which came out in May, will be posted this month. I'm very excited about it. I'm so excited about to talk to you about it. This is about 2 people. They end up going out for the same job. Essentially, we have a woman who was really famous in like the 60s and 70s, and then she disappears after a very tragic accident happens to bestow her family, and now she is ready to write her memoir, and it's about the relationship between 2 people who are fighting for that job. And yeah, I'm sure based on my excitement, you can tell what I rated it, but I won't tell you in face to face. Just know if you like the book, it's definitely a video to watch. Okay, let's continue. He's to Die For by Aaron Dunn. Another e-arc. I do think it's out. I think it comes out this month at some point, maybe June 6th or something out of those lines. If I'm not mistaken. This is about 2 detectives. One is, I think, also from London. That's weird. Also traveling to like New York, which is also kind of weird. I think the girl travels to like Antarctica, and that's where the last book takes place. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This is about a detective who falls in love for someone who is on the suspect list. Okay, this person ends up being really high up in the management system, or management. He ends up being like a boy band singer, like the lead of a boy band singer. Management, I don't know where that came from. And essentially, their manager ends up being shot and killed. And so he's a suspect because of the drama that's going on and their investigations and stuff. And there's parts of this I think really worked, and there's parts of it that did not work like at all. But it was fun, it was cute, and I definitely would recommend it if you're looking for a nice little mystery. There's a bit of homophobia in it, per se, in the workplace. However, the partner's like really kind, which I think is really sweet and could have been handled differently from a different author. So I'm enjoying that aspect as well. I went on a 3.5. Okay, so yeah. Is this like the space between us or something along those lines? I can't like fully necessarily remember what it's called. My cats are fucking fighting each other right now below you. Can't remember. I love this book. I would highly recommend this. This is the first book in a series, and it's a possible like further relationship book where it's like a slow burn romance. But it's about these 2 boys. They meet in school. The one boy is extremely, I would say, partially autistic, kind of OCD. Has a lot of things that he has to do in a very particular way. Everybody else kind of gives him a big deal for it, and this guy comes in who is dealing with some stuff and wants a friend and wants to be kind and all these things, and is befriending this kid, this guy their same age, and they end up learning from one another, and such a beautiful and sweet romance or relationship, even a friendship at that. So I would highly recommend it if it's out or when it's coming out. would recommend. We'll be reading the sequel if it gets made. We're down to the final few, which is amazing. Alright, so this is that series I was going to talk to you about. Essentially on Goodreads, everybody reads Sleepover, which I think I mentioned briefly in the previous wrap-up. But this is one of the ones. It's called Thursday at School, and right here it says, not a kid's book, which is what the series is called. And essentially, these are extreme adult novels dealing with very adult subject matter, some mostly involving children, but it's not a kid's book for XYZ reasons. There's like one where the grandma's dead, and it's like going and visiting grandma for the weekend and experiencing that. The Sleepover one is controversial in itself as well for reasons. And I decided it'd be kind of fun to do this in a very interesting, intoxicated way, to read these with my husband. And we tried for a little bit, but we both didn't think they were funny at all. Like, neither of us thought it was funny. Both of us thought that it was really disturbing, but not funny, like, at all. So, like, it just ended up being not very enjoyable to film, and the books were just mediocre at best. So I'm giving it, I did not rate a single one of them. Take that as you will. But I did read them all, so they're counted towards my wrap-up, they're counted towards everything else. So I did want to mention the series, but this is the only book I'm holding up because we're not going through 40 of these, as I don't remember the premise of all these, okay? Because I was not present while reading them, which was the whole point. And that was how I felt like it was going to be most enjoyable. Was I wrong? Kinda. I'm just gonna show everyone my hands on top. Okay. All right. We have The Reformatory, which is the next one we'll talk about. The Reformatory was a softy enough. This is Tanara Dew, I think is how you pronounce her name. And essentially, I just, at the moment in time, I was going into, like I said, a slight reading slump. And so I had hit the point where I was actively not wanting to read heavy things or really long things. This is like a 700-page book, and it deals with some beautiful writing. I read probably about the first 20% before I decided that this is a book that I will really, really enjoy at some point during this year. It's just not today. So I soft DNF'd it. About this boy who ends up being convicted for a crime. I can't remember what it is. It's really stupid. And they end up sending him to a reformatory school, and they basically tell him, hopefully you survive. And it's really tragic, and it's really, really sad. And they're trying, the siblings try and do everything they can and things. And the dad's pretty sought after for being like an asshole and being this horrible guy in town as well. Like I said, I really, really enjoyed it. And I felt like the writing is going to be beautiful and it's going to be heartbreaking. I'm going to cry my eyes out. I just wasn't prepared for that type of reading experience. And so sometimes you just got to put a book down and come back to it in a future date. And so that is what I did with The Reformatory. It was a DNF. However, based on the 20% that I read, I would highly recommend it. I feel like a lot of people would enjoy it. And that one has more like a supernatural part to it. So I wonder like if you would also enjoy like Nickel Boys and stuff, which is one of my favorite books of the year. And it's also one of my favorite movies of the year too. Deals the same subject matter. This one's just more supernatural. At least it seemed like it was going into a more supernatural route than the other one. Both horror novels for sure, for obvious reasons. You know what? Because it keeps dropping, we're going to talk about it. Alright, so you thought I read one book about a band? You're crazy. I read 2 books about a band. Possibly 3. I can't remember if this month or not. But we have Gorge's Gruesome Face, which I do think does hold up to its title. However, it does not hold up to that beautiful cover. I picked it because of the cover, and it did not hold up. I promise you. It does not. It doesn't reach this level. This is a psychological YA thriller to its T. It's about a girl who 5 years ago was a part of a huge K-pop band, and then a horrible thing happens. They end up falling apart, basically trying to sell their soul to death, whatever. And then they come back, and then she ends up trying again, like 5 years later. And it's following both timelines, and you're getting to experience both storylines. I landed on a 3.5, and I feel like it does hit every mark. I feel like a lot of people are going to really like this. It's really cute body horror too, and it definitely does go there. So if that's what you're looking for. The characters are fun. It's a fun storyline, and the relationships are messy, which is exactly what you look for in a type of book like this. Now to the final 3 books, and that is On with Horses. I still have not watched the movie yet. I did read the book to watch the film, and I probably won't do a novel versus movie adaptation, just for the simple fact that like it was a really hard reading experience for me. I couldn't understand why the story was told from the POVs that it was told from. Also, the writing is extremely show, or very tell and not show. So all the lines just feel like this character is doing this without having like any action, and doesn't bring any warmth to me as a reader. I don't get invested. For the majority of this book, I didn't get invested. It's about these 2 people, brother and sister-in-laws, who realize while they're in relationships that they might be gay. Okay. And so they both start having gay relations. That's the book. There's also gambling involved and horses. Like, horses is it's such a big part of the story. If you do not care about horse racing or gambling or anything like that in the 1930s, this is not for you. I'm like, turn away, go in the opposite direction. Maybe watch Jacob or Lies so you can see him kiss Diego if that's what you desire. I know that's why I read a book. Didn't watch the movie yet, so what do I desire? Who knows? But that's, my friends, that's On Swift Horse. Also, because the movie is most known for its sex scenes, call me disappointed. I'm sure some people are like, I was very pleasantly surprised. I wasn't. Next we're going to talk about is Frontier. Frontier is such an interesting story. I will not lie, I do not plan on reading anything from this author again, though. I'm so enamored with the idea how she told this story. This is about a girl. She is called the Stranger, and she is hunting for her girlfriend. Okay, of course, across the galaxy, across this planet. And essentially, we're following her as she's interacting with all these people. And so there's a bunch of short stories that involve her in it as her journey continues from point A to point B. And there's interludes that take place directly from her perspective. However, I saw a lot of people online complaining about the fact that we would get attach these characters and they just be like gone. But also, like, I think that's like the point of it, is that you would get really attached to these characters because you're in their heads, you're from their perspective, and you're learning about their lives, and then it's over in a blink. And so in ways that this book really does work, but also like the main character, the whole focal point of the story, does not work because there's not enough little moments with her to shine, nor this relationship to shine or anything along those lines. Like, there's not enough here for it to level itself out the way it does. And so I was really disappointed with the elements of the execution, even though there's elements of this that I do think are really cool. I just don't know if the story itself was the story to tell for the experimentation. That's Frontier by Grace Curtis. Like I said, I don't plan on picking up another Grace Curtis. Her name popped up again in a cool kind of way, and I was like, that's a cool concept. And I was like, I don't know if it's going to be for me. Then lastly, the last we're going to talk about is a sapphic romance, a suspense thriller, which is No Body, No Crime, which I fucking adored. This is a 4.5. There's elements to it that I didn't love, but most of it I did. It's about two girls. They were really close. Well, essentially they were part of a crime when they were kids, and by accident, it was an accidental crime. And then, so they had to split up. But they have been in love, like madly in love, ever since then. And the one girl ends up going away. The other girl is a PI, and she ends up getting like a link to her, and they end up traveling across this little area together. And there's hitman, there's violence, and it's like so good, and the characters are so good, and the relationship is so beautiful. I very much loved it. I hope you pick it. I hope you pick it up. Like, I really, really liked it. That being said, these are all the books I read in May. Please let me know what your least favorite book and your favorite book of the month is. Please let me know all this information in the comments down below, and I'll tell you all next time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.